One is what I call monk mindset. So especially with something like a business, it's getting away from emotional decision making for big things like this. Okay, like, do we need to systemize the business? And like really looking at that objectively and as logically as possible to help us make the right decision.
Hi, you're listening to the Bookkeepers podcast, sponsored by Xero. I'm Jo Wood.
And I'm Zoe Whitman. Join us and our incredible guests for insider knowledge from successful bookkeepers, business experts, and thought leaders.
We are on a mission to build a more confident bookkeeping community. Our bookkeepers are happier, have more freedom, and earn more. Join us every week and we will show you how.
Hi, and welcome to the Bookkeepers podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm here with Jo Wood. And today we're joined by Mike Jones from Better Happy. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hello, ladies. You good?
We are good. We're excited to chat to you. This is like a podcast exchange that we should have done a really long time ago. We were on your podcast.
Yep.
Maybe last year.
Yep.
So it is definitely overdue, this conversation. We're excited.
Me too. Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure. So do you want to start by telling us a bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah. So I've got two businesses. I've got Better Happy and the Fractional Integrators. It's all focused around the same thing. So it's helping business owners enjoy their businesses, making sure their businesses can and their teams can work without them and that they're healthy and happy whilst they're running it. And then before these are my second businesses. So before that, I owned a gym. So that was my very first business. And then before that, I served 5 years in the army, a couple of tours of Afghanistan, and then I did 3 years traveling. I worked off deep sea fishing boats in Australia, catching sharks, and lived with monks on monasteries in Thailand and Nepal.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, Mike. I don't really know where to start. But so you got an adventurous streak.
Yeah.
And from what you've done in the past to what you're doing now, how do you like maintain and have fun in your like day-to-day? Because sounding like tell us what your business actually delivers on now, and how do you like keep that excitement day to day?
Well, I didn't in my first business, and that's why I've got the business I've got now. So my first business, I made the mistake of putting the things that are most important to me in life on hold, telling myself that story that, I'll do those again when we reach this milestone, which you always move. So in the first business, I didn't prioritize those things. So it's two questions. So what we deliver is we work with owners and their teams to make sure the business is win-win, to make sure that the business is progressing where they want it to, but also to make sure that the team and the owner are enjoying the process, the progress. So it's all about making business a win-win, essentially. We do corporate training as well, which is essentially the same kind of training for managers and leaders. So we're like, okay, you're a manager, you're a leader now. You used to be a doer, same as an owner, right? You used to be a good doer. Now you've got to focus on being a good leader and being strategic. So we train them on how to do that without getting stressed and burnt out in the process. So that's what we do. The way that I do that and still retain that kind of love for adventure and health is I just make it a non-negotiable. I just say that's got to happen and make the business fit around that, as opposed to saying, my health and my happiness and my things that I enjoy in life will fit around the business.
Nice. There's so much here. I can see so much connection to the way bookkeepers feel when they're building their businesses and, the way that we become this really good doer. But I wonder, when you're working with your clients and they're at this point where they don't love their business anymore and you start to get involved, is there like a journey people go on, like where you can kind of predict this stage will happen? And I'm thinking about like when you start a business, and Jo and I are brilliant starters. I think that's like part of like entrepreneurial spirit, is we're very excited about a new idea, and we can give that a lot of sort of power and effort when that idea is exciting and fresh. And then maybe that, like, we don't always find like the finishing quite as exciting. Like we, obviously we're disciplined and we'll get it done, but I feel like we might lose that love at that point. But do you find this with the business owners that come into your world? Is there a predictable pattern that people follow when they get to this point where they don't love it anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just pulling a video together on this. So that'll be on the betterhappybusinessclub.com website. So there'll be a video, free video, no email exchange. Just go and watch it, explaining this exact journey that you're asking about. And it almost feels like it's been pre-framed, but we didn't talk about this before. So there is a predictable journey, right? There's four there's two things that coincide. So there's 4 stages. I would say there's 4 stages of business that the owner goes through. And then there's also the 4 motivators that an owner has. And what happens is as the business progresses and the owner progresses, how you fulfill those motivations changes. So let me make some sense of that. So there's 4 F's: fun, freedom, finance, and fulfillment. We all want those 4 things from our business in a different level. And as we progress through our business and our business maturity, how we get those things changes. Okay. So when you're in startup phase, you get your freedom because you're no longer in employment. Okay. So you're like, I'm making my own thing. I'm really happy. Right. And you probably don't care too much about money at the beginning. Okay. Because you accept that it takes a bit of time to get going. So that finance piece tends to be a bit lower, but that freedom piece you get from being your own boss. Yeah. I loved it. My first bit when I started it, the first 2 years, I'm my own boss. I'm making this thing work. It's amazing. Now, I won't go through the other 2, but let's just stick with the freedom piece. So typically you're in your startup phase, which is where you're just trying to figure out what the hell you're doing and get some traction, typically between 6 to 18 months. And if you can't move out of it in 6 to 18 months, generally you try and move on to a different idea because you're like, it's not working. And then you move into what I call the stage 2, which is the success phase, but that also moves into the slog phase. And this is what I think is really important for business owners to understand that predictable journey. So after startup, you get a level of success, right? So for you two, right, people start to listen to you. You start to get people wanting to give you money because you're providing a really good service that they like. And then you kind of start to figure out this product market fit. You're like, we've got this message that's resonating. We've got this service that's solving a problem. We're getting a relatively consistent level of interest. So we're in what we'd call the success phase. And you feel really excited by that. And the business and the team, because you tend to build a team around this point, and the clients are all highly reliant on you, but you love it because you're the leader of the ship, right? You've created freedom. You're leading this charge. It's exciting. You're figuring it out. And then the success phase, typically anywhere between kind of 3 to 6 years, but for some business owners, it's longer, starts to feel like a slog. And what's happening here is the way that you're wanting to get your freedom from your business is changing now. So everything being reliant on you no longer feels cool. And all of a sudden, the business that you've created for freedom starts to feel like a job that's making you feel trapped, the thing that you wanted to escape at the beginning. But you want freedom. So you're kind of like, oh, what's going on? Like, I created this business for freedom. I loved it at the start because it gave me freedom from employment. But now, because I've made everything reliant on me, it feels like a job that's probably more stressful than a job and probably not paying me as much as a job, or maybe only, not hour for hour at least, not really worth it. And then what happens is we then tell ourselves this story that, well, there's no way it can work without me. It's too complicated. So we just stay stuck. And all of a sudden, bearing in mind we're highly driven by freedom, we now feel like we've created a cage for ourselves. And that's what I call the business owner trap. And then we lose our motivation. And then we're just kind of like, ugh, but everyone's looking up to us. So we just feel stuck. And if you stay there for too long, you end up either at best just demotivated and not very excited, and at worst completely burnt out. But you also end up with a business that you can't sell because it's owner dependent. So that's what I call the owner trap, being in that stage there. But everybody's getting there, and it's just understanding it, because once you understand it and you can see it, you can navigate out of it.
Oh my goodness. This is so, like, we have so many conversations where people are in this trap, and it's funny because you've excitedly put yourself in this trap. Yeah. I see the people with all this motivation, and they're doing really, like, we have so many conversations where people are working full time. They may have 2 or 3 kids at home. They're studying on the side. They're doing our courses to build, and they've got all this energy. And we said this the other day, Zoe, as well, about, like, never underestimate a pregnant woman to achieve so much. When you, like, how, like, Zoe wrote her book in, like, the first few months of having Wilf, didn't you? Like, while she was feed, she would be like dictating and writing, and it's like, never underestimate someone that's motivated. They can achieve so much. And then you get there and you're like, oh, what have I created? And we talk all the time about, like, don't let the business design your life, design the business. What does it look like when you've arrived and it looks really good? Because people they just go with the flow, and they're taking all this action.
And the thing is like, your strategy changes. So when you start your business, unless you're like a really experienced entrepreneur with loads of kind of success behind you, like your business strategy is probably oh, it'd be great to make this thing work. That's probably your business strategy. It's certainly mine for like my businesses. Maybe my second, the fraction integrators and Better Happy, who had a bit more of a strategy behind it. But my first business was just, well, God, it'd be great if I could pay myself what I could get in a job. Because you don't believe in yourself yet. You haven't got that confidence. You don't know about profit. You don't know about margins. You don't know about revenue. So you just don't know that stuff. So when you start your business, your strategy is kind of make this thing work, and then you achieve that. But then you realize, actually, I've got to make quite a bit of money, and I've got to make this thing work without me, and I've got to use a team, and then I've got to learn how to use it. I've got to hire a team. I've got to learn how to utilize them. I've got to use systems. So your strategy has to change, and I think that's something that a lot of business owners don't realize. They're kind of like, well, I had a plan, which was to make this thing work, and now it kind of works, and now I don't know what my plan is to get to the next bit. But if it stays where it is, I'm just going to feel a bit bleh.
Yeah, and I think as well, in this space with bookkeepers, I don't know if it's just a bookkeeper thing. I think that there's this challenge that we face where female professionals especially can't make work anymore. They step back from the workplace. They try and monetize the skill that they've been delivering in their workplace for years and years, and they create this thing that looks like a job. And like you say, they have to learn how to scale this and how to service clients without like working every hour of every day. And obviously that isn't their skill set because they haven't run a business before, which is fine. And none of us who ran a business for the first time knew how to run a business before. Yeah. But then we start creating like excuses and reasons why the systemized business that we know we really need if we're going to achieve the goal that actually could have been the goal, we kind of make reasons why, well, that isn't for us, or we won't, oh, well, I won't do that because I just want it to be like this. And then we just stay trapped forever, and then we doubt ourselves more, and then we lose more confidence and all of those things. So it is a real trap.
It's a downward spiral, that is. And there's two things that spring to mind for me. So one is what I call monk mindset. So especially with something like a business, it's getting away from emotional decision making for big things like this. Okay, like, do we need to systemize the business? And like really looking at that objectively and as logically as possible to help us make the right decision. And then the other one is that is understanding the hunter-gatherer aspect of our minds. Like for 95% of our existence on this planet, we were hunter-gatherers. Like this way that we live now is like this tiny piece of our evolution, if that was the scale. So like your mind is hardwired to, our minds are hardwired to gravitate towards what we know, comfort and security and predictability, and to use any excuse possible to avoid the uncertain and the unknown. And that's what used to keep us alive, right? When we're hunter-gatherers, it's like, if I don't need to go around that corner that I've never been around before, there might be something waiting to kill me or a cliff edge. It makes sense that my brain will make excuses to keep me on the route I already know, which has obviously got its benefits because it stops us walking in front of cars and jumping into the lion enclosure at the zoo. But it's also got its issues, especially when we're in business, because I think you go through these kind of massive jumps. So to go from not owning a business to owning a business and making money, like that's a massive uncertain into a level of security. So you're literally risking everything. It's probably the most scary thing most people can do, like quit their job and start their own business. And you're like, oh, is it going to work? You've got all this stress, all this fear. And then you create a level of stability. And you're like, stability again. But then to systemize the business, because actually what most of us do is we create self-employment first. We create self-employment with a little team. And then we're like, okay, well, now this isn't doing it for me because I'm working loads of hours. Actually, per hour, I'm probably not earning much more than I could in a job. And I have to worry about all the admin and all the extra stuff that comes with business. So then we come to this rational conclusion that, okay, well, I've got to make this thing work without me. Otherwise, I'm not happy. We've just done a workshop with a load of electricians. It's the same thing. It's like, look, and what I did was I put up a slide, which would probably be really helpful for your bookkeepers, actually. Like, just get together that use ChatGPT. What's the average benefits of being a bookkeeper? So what do I get paid? Like in employment, how much holiday do I get? What perks can I get? How much training, and get all that there. And then look at that comparatively to owning your own business. And if you're going to own your own business, you're going to put in a lot more time, effort, and stress than you would into the job. So it's got to be worth it. And that's the conclusion that you get to normally about 3-5 years in, isn't it? It's like, well, okay, I've like built a client base. I've done all this hard work. I've learned all this stuff. I've worked crazy hours. But actually, if I think about it, whilst it's all reliant on me, it's probably not really worth it compared to having a job. So then we come to this conclusion. We're like, well, I've got, unless you really are just happy just being self-employed, not having to answer to anybody else, of course. But then that's a monk decision. It's like, well, I'm happy to not make loads of money and run my own business just because I don't have to answer to anybody else. Fine. Then you build your business model around that. But for a lot of us, we're going to want more money. I know I do. So then you come to this conclusion that, well, I've got to systemize it. And then we've got to get out of that fear-based mindset and make logical decisions to help us conclude that we're going to get there and not just let fear drive us. Otherwise, we'll just keep justifying staying there and end up in that state that Zoe was just talking about, where you're justifying not systemizing the business, but you're getting more and more tired and miserable. And that's not good.
Is there something about the fact that we see that we think back to work experiences that we've had and employments, I mean, there was a lot of time where I was like, well, at least I'm not at risk of redundancy, because I had been made redundant and that felt like a massive grief. So I'm like, well, this is really hard work, but at least I am not I'm not going to sack myself, or, at least I'm not having to drive an hour to my place of work. So we kind of rationalize and think, well, we're so lucky, and we are really lucky. And, and I don't know about you, but if you've got people in your family that are employed, I mean, I'm one of 5 children, all of us are self-employed. And, we say to my father, like, everyone owns their own business in Joe's family. And he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? Because he's, so people do assume that, like, you've got it so good if you're running your business. So you kind of start thinking, well, who am I to complain? I do choose my hours. You work all the hours, but you choose them. You choose to work a lot of them. And I think there's something like, do we really deserve to be that happy and that rich and that healthy? Like, who are we? I really do think there's something in there. And sometimes we keep it harder because we don't trust us. Like, what would we do with all this happiness and fun and, like, money?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit to unpack there, isn't there? So I think ultimately what you're getting at there is, can we enjoy running a business and make a business successful if we don't feel that we deserve it? And again, I think that comes down to what's helped me with this is that monk mindset stuff. And I think maybe this appeals more to men. I don't know. But I think that monk mindset can really help, because, when I had my first business, I remember thinking, it's not about the money, it's about helping people. But it's not true. It is about the money. Like, if you own a business, it's about the money, or you own a charity. And there's risk that comes with owning business. There's nobody's paying for your holidays. Nobody's doing all your admin for you. Nobody's doing your tax. If you've got a team and there's money's not coming in, you don't get paid. So there needs to be a reward for that risk. And in my opinion, the reward should be you earn a lot more than what you do in a job. And I also think that business is, I think it's probably painted a bit in rose tainted glasses, because it's not all fun. It's not easy. It's not just giving you this great lifestyle. The reality is like you just said, it's like, you can work your own hours and it's probably going to be more than what you've ever done in a job. And you can go on holiday when you want, but you're probably not going to go on holiday. I've got a stat. I think it's 80% of small and medium business owners take less than 20 days off a year. So it's, for me, it's only worth, and I think a job is underrated. So I'm not against having a job. I think there's loads of great perks to having a job. You get paid holiday, you're getting paid regardless at the end of the year. You're at risk of redundancy, but if you've been in your job for a while, you get paid to be made redundant. If you're in a business and the whole economy changes, nobody's going to come and give you some money. It's like, well, you've just kind of been made redundant and you're not getting paid for it. So it's all just, I think it's really useful to think about business as an investment. It's an investment, and it's a higher risk and higher work investment than a job. So it needs to pay off. And if it doesn't, then what's the point in doing it? But I suppose what you need to do as a business owner is think about what's the payoff that you want. Is it money? How much? Is it freedom? How much? Is it fulfillment? Just doing the work you love? Okay. Because even that brings a financial cost. Because if you just want to do loads of, like, coaching, for example, you love coaching, you love working with people, great. You're going to have to pay somebody to do your accounts and your admin and all that stuff. So there's still it all kind of intertwines with each other.
As bookkeepers and business owners ourselves, we love Xero, cloud-based accounting software right at your fingertips. Xero's simple, intuitive interface makes managing finances a breeze. No more number crunching or late nights. With Xero, you can focus on what you love while it takes care of the rest.
Ready to simplify your financial life?
Visit xero.com and start your free trial today.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? I was looking at some stats the other day because I just can't help myself. I'm like a massive stats nerd, and I think, right, I completely agree. Joe and I always talk about, like, if you are a bookkeeper and we can help you to earn more as an employee, that is great, because if you can earn enough as an employee that you can have the life you want, I want to give you the confidence to be able to do that. But then there are other people, and self-employment is the way to go, or running their own business is the way to go.
Yeah.
I agree. There's definitely like the terminology needs to change. Self-employed isn't very helpful because we think about being an employee. But when I was looking at these stats, and this is like ONS stats about part-time and temporary workers and full-time workers and all this kind of stuff. But there was lots of information about, like, how many people are full-time and part-time, how many women are full-time and part-time, how many men are full-time and part-time, and then why are they part-time, right? And and I've got it because I love it. But like it says on the screen, when the answers that people were obviously asked, I don't know where this survey is asked, but it's like, what are your reasons for working part-time? And the answers are things like, could not find a full-time job, did not want a full-time job, ill or disabled, student or at school. But the thing is, right, it might be that they can't find, like, they might not be able to find a part-time job that fits around their child. Like, there were so many things that aren't explored in that data set, where I'm like, actually, most of the people that we're speaking to here, or listeners to the Bookkeepers podcast, are here and they want to build a business because full-time employment, it doesn't need to be the thing. They just need to have fair full-time employment that allows them to achieve what they need to earn, but that isn't measured by how many hours they sit at their computer.
Yeah.
And I don't think employment is set up for that. Like, there are lots of people in this industry who will say about skills shortages. I'm sure Joe and I will go to all the conferences this year and there'll be this ongoing, oh my gosh, we can't find great trained people, and like there's such a skills shortage. Well, there isn't, but the workforce doesn't work. So people then are sort of forced into running their own business and being self-employed because they need to match the income they need to, because childcare, I used to spend £2,000 a month on childcare for my kids when they were in nursery. So like, that's like a lot of most people's salary. It was a lot of my salary. And so they need to make self-employment work, but then they're so busy and they're trying to do everything. And because we're stuck in this operator mode where we know how to do good bookkeeping, so we go and start a business where we can do good bookkeeping, but we lack confidence because the workforce doesn't make us particularly want to feel very confident, because we can't fit the mold of being this great full-time person that society loves and respects. So we run this business and then we make lots of excuses about why our business can't be more or can't be greater. And I think, I feel like this is one of the reasons that we get trapped as well, because we can't see that we are allowed to run the business with the systems. And maybe we didn't really want to do that in the first place. It's just like, we didn't really want to be a business owner in the first place, but it's kind of like our only choice. And I suppose I'm just thinking, like, if you're that person and you're in that situation and you're like, oh, damn it, I was actually going to swear then. I am stuck in my, I'm stuck.
Darn it.
Damn it. I need to make it work, but I'm trapped in the operator role. How do we get out of that? Like, we're now unhappy. We're now working all the time. We still can't earn enough to cover our nursery fees. Like, now what do we do to get out of that business owner?
It's got to be monk mindset, hasn't it? It's got to be getting yourself backwards from the emotion and using logical and rational decisions to help us come to the conclusions we need to come to. Because if we don't override the emotional hunter-gatherer decision making, we're going to keep ourselves in that vicious circle of, this business isn't making me happy. I'm working too many hours. I'm not making the money I need to, but I don't want a job, but I can't systemize it. So you emotionally rationalize keeping yourself in a place that's not going to make you a happy person. So I mean, there's a really easy way that we do it with our clients, and you guys, please feel free to pinch this. So we go the 4 F's. So fun, freedom, finances, and fulfillment, right? And we write that on the column on the left. And then across the top, we write 1 year, 3 years, 5 to 10 years. And we're just like, what does your business need to do across those 4 things to make you happy, for you to be sat here and not peed off, right? So it might normally in the first year, it's like, from the financial perspective, it's like, I want to draw more money, okay, and it's a specific amount. And if people don't get specific, I make them get specific. because this is a crossover from working in the fitness industry. People used to come to the gym and be like, I want to get fit. I want to lose weight. I'll be like, okay, how much? Oh, I don't know. I don't want to get specific. And we don't like getting specific about our goals because it brings with it the fear of failure. But if we're not specific about our goals, we're going to find it very difficult to achieve them. So if you're not specific about how much money you want to take from your business, you're probably going to say, I want to take more. And you're like, okay, we'll make an extra £5. Like, go and, you know what I mean? So it's not specific, and then it's really hard to plan. So like, you've just got to drill people to kind of be confident on setting a number, but also being at peace that it's okay to miss that number. Because it's much better to have a number that you're excited by and miss it and then refine than to have a safe number because you just felt it was like more achievable, but then you're still not motivated by it. So if you want to be able to take home 60 grand from your business, then say that. Even if it feels scary, like, say that. If you want to take home 100 grand or whatever it is, like, find the number that is actually going to work for you. And it should really come from, well, I can cover my childcare. I can go on holiday. I can go and buy nice food without having to think about it. We can go out for a meal once a week. I mean, that's what Laura and I do. Like, we plan our finances off. What's going to pay the mortgage? What's going to enable us to go skiing 12 times a year? What's going to enable us to go out for dinner at least once a week? What's going to enable us to buy the food that we want from the shop without having to think about it? And then and that's like our baseline. But then we think about, well, what's the life we want? And then you set new targets off that. And what happens is you create what we call an aligned strategy, right? If you start with the owner, you start with what you want from your business. You get clarity around these 4 things. And, you know, I won't go on about it too long because I'll lose people, but like, there's the finance piece. You've got fulfillment. Okay. What do you need to do what do you need to be doing in your business for fulfillment? Well, like, you two need to be out in front of people and inspiring people because you love it. Right. So if you're not having the time to do that, you're going to be upset. So that naturally leads us to, well, we need to get people to do bits of the business that we don't want to do. And obviously that then has a cost implication, which then comes back to the finances. But you work through this, and, you know, and the more consistently you do it, the better it gets. And then what comes from that is a financial strategy. So it's like, okay, if I want to take this much and I want to do these jobs and I want somebody else to do that for me, I think roughly we need to make this much money. And you two have basically got a kind of mapped out strategy for this for bookkeepers, which is where it gets really powerful. And then the last thing that comes out of it is a business strategy. So it's like, well, we need to make that much money so that we can get the stuff we want and have the team that we need. So then it's like, well, what clients do we want to attract that are going to pay this price point and us be able to handle them? But I think reverse engineering it from what you want isn't selfish, it's essential. And I think business owners think it's wrong to do that. And I would say to any business owner, if you're not willing to get sensibly selfish about this and think about what you want and make that a priority, you're probably better off in a job, because you're just going to get resentful. You're going to get 3, 5, 10 years down the line and think, why am I doing this instead of having a job? So you've got to weigh up the things and make sure it's going to work for you, because then you'll stay motivated, you'll be excited, you'll be driven, you'll have the energy you need to make the business get better, to look after your team. But if you're not thinking about how it's going to work for you, you're just going to get, ugh. I feel like that was a monologue. Sorry.
No, it was a good monologue. I like that. And I love this whole thing about like being sensibly selfish. I think, so I know from my point of view, I love this idea about the monk mode, but I am very emotional. And the reason I started my business was mostly driven from emotion. I was 22, just had a baby. I did not want to leave my baby and go back into an accountancy practice.
And there is actually no such thing as non-emotional decision making, because people have brain injuries where they lose their connection to the emotional side of the brain. And what do you think happens to their decision making abilities when that happens? And this is like documented in science. So somebody's pure ration, like all the emotional side of the brain's been disconnected for an injury. What do you reckon happens to their decision making abilities?
I've got no idea. I've never
can't even get out of the house in the morning because they can't decide what tie to wear. You can't, because rationally there's so many. There's endless reasons for and against. So all of your decisions are in some way driven by emotion. So I'm not trying to be like one of these stoics that alienates emotion, but you do have times when you're stuck where you need to try and
a bit,
dial it down a bit, to make a rational decision.
It's like we had a coach once, and he was always wearing either a black t-shirt or white t-shirt and jeans. Yeah. And we once said to him about that, and he was like, it's just stopping my decision fatigue. That decision's made. And it was, he systemized his wardrobe. in order to have one less decision. And I really do think, like, if you are the default parent in a family and you're making so many decisions about so many things, and then you've got to make decisions in your business, like the systemization can, like, you get actually, I love the thing about Sensibly Selfish is that people don't realize how addictive it can be when you realize that delegating a task frees you up and actually someone does it better than you.
Yeah.
And you realize that
And they
actually
enjoy it.
and they enjoy it. And it doesn't hurt your ego. Your ego's fine and it's intact. Like, it doesn't make you a bad person. Just someone else is better than you.
See,
When you
I
get
think
used to that,
anything that I hate, everybody hates, and I feel bad about delegating. And it's
Yes.
realizing, isn't it, that like somebody likes that. So somebody genuinely enjoys sitting and doing that thing that you despise.
Yeah, and you're actually being selfish by, like, taking all of this work away from other people that are actually going to do it better.
Being selfish is like, straight away we hear that word and it gives a negative connotation. You feel it in your body when you hear the word selfish. And I think it's a very British thing as well. Like, if somebody says you're selfish, you like really feel bad about it. So let me ask you a question to both of you two. Do you think you're selfish?
I do say I am. Yeah.
Okay. Joe?
I'm a people pleaser through and through. And
Frozen.
I can feel it in my heart when you say, are you so I'm learning to be. So there's sometimes, so I've been on 2 ski trips this year and I have 3 children. I feel like the most selfish person in the world, but I also know, so it's a strange relationship, isn't it? Because
like
I know I'm doing it.
Like, I know this is the right thing to do and I'm going to choose it because it's important. But also I feel guilty that I'm not with the, I don't know, like this Sunday morning, I like to like get up, have a like nice, like at some point in the morning, I'll disappear and I'll go and do all my like self-care things.
So you both kind of know to an extent that you got to have some level of selfishness, but then when you feel guilt, it's around your kids and your family, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what about some kids over in my town that live on the other side of town that they're not eating well at the moment because the parents haven't got enough money? Do you feel guilty about them?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do you? You didn't even know they existed 2 seconds ago.
No, I know, but now I know. I'm like, well, sad.
Would you change your behavior and your business model and your lifestyle to support them?
Well, I mean,
the answer is no. Look, I'm not painting you as bad people, but you two are not going to listen to that now and go, right, we need to change everything in our lives to cater for that family you might just mentioned in Droitwich. So I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but the point, I asked Laura about this, my partner. I said, do you think you're selfish? She said, no. She's one of the most caring, giving people I know, right? She drives her son, well, she used to when he was younger, to Birmingham and back 4 times a week. It's an hour each way so we can do gymnastics. Right? She's a super mom. And she's like, I'm not selfish. I was like, okay, would you do that for one of the kids down the street? She goes, no. I was like, so you do it for your own kid, but not somebody else's? And she's like, yeah. I goes, is that not selfish? And she's like, And the point is like, we're all selfish because we'd all be dead if we weren't. Like, there's no, you have to be selfish to an extent to survive. You have to prioritize yourself. You have to prioritize your health. You have to prioritize your family. You know, you've got to do these things. So we're all selfish to an extent. And that's why I always talk to business owners about being sensibly selfish, because especially people who are high on compassion, we can very easily fall into this trap of like, just I'll look after myself when the business is sorted and the clients are in and the clients are happy and there's no complaints and everyone's been paid, then I can look after me. And that's a really, really not going to get you far, because actually for you to provide the best service in your business, you've got to be the best version of you. For you and parents, I mean, I've got 2 dogs, but no kids, right? So parents are the worst because it's hardwired within you to put your kids before yourself. It's just like it's continuation of the species, right? But if you're constantly sacrificing your health, not making time for yourself, not spending time actually having a relationship with your partner and going out on dates because you've got these kids that you just want to take to all these clubs and constantly do everything for, you're going to make yourself really unhealthy. You're going to make yourself miserable. You're not going to be a good role model to that kid because the kid wants to see the happy version of mum or dad. And you're not going to live as long as you should, probably. So you're not going to be around with them for as long as possible. So you've got to get into this mindset of being sensibly selfish. And when we do this exercise, we do it with owners, but we do it with managers and leaders as well. We're like, who wants to be healthier in this room, for example? Or who wants their business to be better? All of us do. Okay, why? And most of us, because we think we should. I think I should be a bit healthier. I think my business should make more money. You're like, well, that's not a very good reason. So get clear on why. And there's a study that was done by behavioral psychologists that work with nurses. This is where this comes from, right? And nurses are notoriously poor at looking after themselves and their health, right? Even though they provide healthcare, right? So no matter what interventions were done in the UK with this group of nurses, like they go in, they talk to them about how to be healthier, how to prioritize yourself, all of this stuff. And they'd be like, yeah, that's great. And then not do it over and over again. What they then did, what these behavioral psychologists did, was they then got them to say, work with them and said, what do you care most about? And what they figured out that one of the things that nurses care about most is providing a high quality of care to their patients. It's not surprising, is it? Like teachers, they want to provide high quality care to their students. So they then said to them, okay, how does your health being good or bad affect the quality of care that you can provide to these patients? And they got really clear on it. And then after that, consistently, these nurses got healthier and healthier and healthier because they'd linked it to a why. So I think a lot of us business owners aren't actually that passionate about making more money and being profitable. I think we couldn't really give a damn, controlling myself. So we're not, are we? Like, we know we need to do it, but it's like you're not that some are often good business owners, but a lot of us aren't. So it's like, okay, that's probably not going to motivate me. Just saying, make more money, be more systemized, hire a bigger team. But what is going to what matters to you the most? And is it your career? Is it your business? Is it your family? Okay, how is you improving the business going to contribute to that? How is you looking after your health going to contribute to that? And it's just hacking into your psychology to be sensibly selfish.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. It is that, like linking back to why am I doing this is so, it makes it so much more meaningful, and it's so much obvious. And I think that people listening to this will be like, oh yeah, that is why.
With a bookkeeper, right? So you would probably be having the conversation around why do you want to be a bookkeeper? And I know just from listening to you two, it's solving a really kind of new problem, which is mums want to do meaningful work, but they also want to be able to spend time with their family. They don't have to sacrifice the time with their family to have a good job and to make a difference. So like bookkeeping is like an amazing solution to that, because you can provide a good service and do it flexibly around your family, right? Amazing. Like, who would argue with that? Nobody. It's why you two are popular. But then you're going to get stuck in this position where you're working too much. It's not really working. It's stressing you out. So then I'd be having the conversation, why are you doing this bookkeeping business? I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to have financial freedom. Brilliant. What does the business need to do for that to happen? What does that success look like in that area? I can't keep working all these hours. Okay. What if you are still working these hours in 2 years? I'll be stressed out and miserable. So it's got to change. Like, regardless of whether you can justify systemizing it or not systemize it or hiring a team, that's got to change. Otherwise, the whole reason for you doing this isn't working. And that's kind of what I would be as like a monk mindset decision. But it's got to change. Are we agreed on that, or we disagree? Agreed. Okay, let's put that over to the side. How much money have you got to make? We're going to make this much. Can you do that on your own? Well, I'd have to charge £400 an hour. Okay. But is that possible? Probably not. Okay. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to grow a team, and it's coming to these. Okay. And if we don't do that, what's going to happen? I'm still going to be earning less than what I would in a job, or I'm not going to be earning the money that I need to give me the lifestyle that I want. So we've got to figure that out. Maybe we have to hire a team, productize our service, build a course, whatever it will be. And then you just come to these decisions based on what you want, as opposed to staying stuck where you are due to fear.
Oh my goodness. Well, we've got a lot of conversations to have, Zoe, I think, with a lot of people, and it all completely makes sense. And I think there is a bit here about a permission piece, because when we focus, actually our goals aren't selfish. They tend to not be focused on, I don't speak to many bookkeepers that want a new Hermes handbag. I've never heard someone say that. It's that they want to be there on the school run, or that they wish they could pay for the kids to go on this amazing trip with school and things like that.
That is selfish, and own it. Like, that's okay. Yeah. Like, it's okay to be selfish to an extent, as long as you're not arrogantly selfish and you don't care about anybody else in the world. And to be fair, if you do, whatever. But as long as it's not arrogant selfishness or like misjudged, if it's selfishness so that you can be happy, I think the world needs more sensibly selfish people, because that's, we've got all this opportunity around us and this freedom, and people aren't taking advantage of it. So people are like unhappy because they know they've got this opportunity, but they're not seizing it. Whereas if you're like, I want to be a mum that can only work 10 hours a week, I'm making this up now, and spend loads of time with my family and give my family a good quality of life and not be reliant on a ugly man to give me money, then go and own it and be an inspiration and be a role model, and don't be ashamed of the fact that you want that. Like, you've got to have this confidence to be sensibly selfish. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I love it. It's great. It's great. I want to speak to the person who's building that 10-hour-a-week business.
Yeah.
Mike, it's been
That would be good.
amazing. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I wonder, like, everyone's going to want to listen to your podcast, find out more about you. So how can people connect with you and find out more about what you do?
If you just go to betterhappybusinessclub.com, you can get a copy of my book from there for $4.99, which explains all of this. We're just rebranding and relaunching our podcast as Escape the Business Owner podcast, Escape the Owner Trap podcast. So there's a link to that on there as well. So it's all on that page. It's nice and simple.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Bookkeepers podcast. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the
Bye.
Bookkeepers podcast, sponsored by Xero. Check out our YouTube channel, join our community, the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club, on Facebook. And if you love what we do, please rate and review this podcast. See you next time. Bye.